I wonder what the reaction will be today, Andrew
Mhm.
Mason.
Do the Broncos have 99 problems, but a dead cap isn't one of them?
You hope. Maybe. That's right. Orange and blue today with a big topic for the big show, and one that you brought up, Mace, on a couple of occasions.
Yes.
But you wrote about this at denversports.com, and
Thanks for the plug, by the way. I appreciate it.
yes, Andrew Mason, senior Broncos writer at Mace Denver.
You're going to make me sound important. Really not.
I'll tell you this, man. If you talk about hitting them right on the money with what you discussed in one of your latest articles about the Denver Broncos, using dead cap in 2024, whatever happens with Russell Wilson is an absolute excuse, Mace. Let's break it down.
An excuse and not the best of excuses. Let's just start with a couple of obvious things here. Look at the final 8 teams standing in the playoffs. And yes, these are teams that were 9-8 and they kind of squeaked in. But you're sitting there looking at the Green Bay Packers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as 2 teams that had huge dead cap hits from either retired or traded quarterbacks. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. And here they sit.
Right.
Still in the playoffs. The Rams got to the playoffs with a nearly equal dead cap figure, amassed for different reasons. But these are 3 teams that had dead cap figures north of $65 million in total, and they're in the postseason. You can work around it.
Yes. Now, let's go back to the conversation around those teams that you mentioned, Green Bay and Tampa Bay specifically. The offseason, what was everybody talking about? How are they going to field a team? How are they going to compete? How are they going to win? And Mace, that's why it's not a one-for-one comparison with what the Broncos may have in front of them. We're still yet to find out what happens to Russell Wilson, but we all know what's going to happen to Russell Wilson.
Yes.
But remember the conversation around Green Bay and Tampa Bay. What are they going to do? How are they going to win? This is why you have to go get a Baker Mayfield. Well, it worked.
Yeah. Baker Mayfield, scrap heap, right?
Right.
$4 million is his contract.
Less than Jarrett Stidham.
And actually, his cap figure was 1.7. They did some creative accounting to kind of to spread it out. But yeah, average annual per year value less than that of Jarrett Stidham. Baker Mayfield playing like one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. The Bucs got to the playoffs. Yes, they took advantage of a weak division, but they got to the playoffs, and then they won in the playoffs because of Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield wasn't a passenger on the Buccaneers plane. He was at least flying the thing.
Yeah.
Integral to what they were doing and very much looking like a number 1 overall pick that he once was in 2018. For the Packers, a bit different. It's riding Jordan Love in the last year of his rookie deal. They did extend him to keep him around for a couple more years beyond that, but a cost-controlled quarterback who had been incubating behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years. And it took him a couple of months. I mean, Love was not great when the Packers came into Denver back in October. He certainly figured it out not long after that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We go back to the Senior Bowl where we saw Jordan Love that year with a Jalen Hurts, with a Justin Herbert, Steven Montez, shout out to you. But it's like, Love was not ready, to quote Kevin Hart. He wasn't ready. Like, yeah, he wasn't ready at all. And even as he was thrust into the starting lineup this year, he got better as time went on. You mentioned the Rams, those rookies. Although Puka Nacua has been putting on a show since May in rookie minicamp, but those rookies, they got better as the season went on.
They trusted them.
A sign that we've talked about on the show. You got to trust the young players. You got to go with the young players and kind of live with the bumps.
That's the thing. They trusted them to get better. And like you said, live with the bumps. You've got to resist the temptation to pull the plug on a player when they're struggling, when they're young. You've got to say, okay, this player is going to hopefully get better with time. That takes a patience that one does wonder whether Sean Payton is going to have. Now, that being said, we like to talk about Sean Payton's best draft class, 2017, right?
Right.
Trey Hendrickson, they didn't play as much, but you're talking about Alvin Kamara, the others that they brought in, playing right away, living with the bumps, watching them get better. A big part of why the Saints went from 3 straight 7-9 seasons to going to the playoffs the last 4 years of when Sean Payton and Drew Brees were together.
Yeah, and it's something that we got a question in the chat room. We'll get to it because it kind of fits what we're talking about right now. Tom asks, why don't they fire the person responsible for this situation? It's January 17th. I'd say, Mace, I'm probably a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit shocked that George Payton's still the GM. But like the changes usually are made after the draft. He's already done half the work. Like, okay, this situation is dire. You know, there's responsible parties abound, but George Payton's still here making the calls.
Yeah, well, Sean Payton's really making the calls.
Yes.
He's the period
now
that ends
Sean
all
Payton's
sentences.
making the calls. Yes.
So George Payton is kind of executing Sean Payton's vision. And can George Payton do that? Well, at this moment, Sean Payton believes he can, right? So thus he's on the job. I would say in George Payton's defense, some of the calls for his job feel like it's a punishment for past sins, when in reality, right now, the tenor of George Payton's job is different than it was a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Because again, it's Sean Payton's vision that is in play here.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you bring in Nathaniel Hackett, it's George Payton's vision, and he hires Nathaniel Hackett. Now, it's a different dynamic. But I mean, look, you can't deny Nathaniel Hackett was a miss. The Russell Wilson contract was a miss. And that's why you're talking about this dead money figure, that's most of which is going to come from Russell Wilson's contract. Although there are other things involved. The Broncos, even before factoring in the Russell Wilson dead money figure, if he's not on the team in 2 months, the Broncos already had nearly $10 million of dead cap. Now, those are decisions that have been made since Sean Payton came in. Trading Randy Gregory, although that was a George Payton signing, but there's some dead money for Frank Clark. There's dead money on Brandon McManus, who got cut back in May,
right,
as well.
Yeah, this team used to be really good at managing dead cap, like less than $1 million certain years. With
it was
their dead
one
cap
thing
money.
that John Elway did very well.
Yes, yeah, and maybe that was Elway's way, because he would kind of push everything back. If you were on the team, Elway wouldn't really want to negotiate with you until it was the last second. And if you were on somebody else's team, boy, did he love you.
That caused some friction in the locker room.
Yes, for sure.
It really did. Like, why are they backing up the Brinks truck for Jawon James rather than paying the guys who are in here?
Right.
It was fascinating. I think one guy that came up, it was not that year, but it was right around the same time. It was, or maybe it was that year. It was Matt Paradis, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And Connor McGovern came up at some point not too long after that. And they let both of them go. Now, Paradis was coming off of an injury, and they gave oodles of money to Jawon James. And that's the sort of thing that can create some resentment. Like, okay, if I play pretty well here, I'd like to be rewarded, but no, they're going to give all the cash to someone who ends up playing 3 games, Jawon James. Would you say he was the worst free agent signee of the John Elway era?
I believe so, yes.
I would too.
It was absolutely awful.
And there were some whiffs at right tackle, especially. Donald Stevenson, miss. Menelik Watson, best remembered for proposing to his girlfriend during a preseason game.
Yes.
Could you imagine if he tried that when Sean Payton was coach?
He'd be cut before she said, I do.
No. You should be cut. Would he be cut? We should be cut before she said yes, because you say yes before the I do.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're saying he's cut before the wedding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm saying he's cut
before the end of the proposal.
He's still on his knees.
Yes.
With the ring out. He's cut then. Like, what are you doing over there?
It's a different time, wasn't it?
Well, and isn't that business practice? Like, that's what we're talking about in this entire conversation. It's like, what are the business practices of John Elway? Kind of had to be that way, but also, and I'll speak on the Paradis situation specifically, Mace. He had promised, Phil talks about this sometimes on the drive too, Philip Lindsay, but he had promised, like, we're going to work on it. We're going to work on it. We're going to work on it. And then they never would. That same thing happened to Phil. So that was kind of Elway's business practice. Sean Payton does business differently.
Yeah. And the other thing also on those moves, one of the consequences was that you couldn't bring back everyone you wanted to. Like, for example, if you'd acted early in 2015, you could have been able to bring back probably all of Malik Jackson, Derek Wolfe, Danny Trevathan, right? but you kicked the can down the road. And in the end, the only one of those to come back was Derek Wolfe, who signed his contract in January of 2016 during the Super Bowl 50 run. But when Wolfe signed that deal effectively, you knew Trevathan what probably wasn't coming back, but you knew definitely Malik Jackson wasn't coming back. And all of them got more expensive over the course of that season. And that's the thing. Look, occasionally, if you pay too early, you're going to miss. And hey, Russell Wilson's a good example. They shouldn't have given him the extension,
right?
In retrospect, and I get the frustration with George Payton on that. That okay, ultimately, that's he was in part responsible for the extension. But you also had pressure coming from other places as well.
Yes.
Does Russell Wilson agree to come to Denver if there's not the groundwork laid for an extension? Because remember, he had the no trade clause.
Yes.
So
right. And does he end up in Washington instead? That's a conversation. And that's why in a quarterback desperate league, you'll see quarterbacks that have the power. And then other teams like, listen, I don't like the Ravens, although I am wearing purple. People are commenting on our outfits today, which is great.
Well, you got purple and black. What
you got a little purple in your socks there. So
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I do have some purple.
There you go. But look at how the Ravens treated Lamar Jackson. No. Okay. And now he works even harder as the league MVP, or at least should be. It's like, okay, so some quarterbacks try to strong arm their ways. Deshaun Watson, you could put Russell Wilson in the conversation. So some quarterbacks will try to do that in this desperate league. But teams, you had Lamar Jackson banging on the table for money, and the Ravens did everything they could not to pay him until they had to.
Yeah, and then teams looked at Lamar Jackson, and yes, would have cost a couple of first-round picks because he was tagged, and said no. Atlanta
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? If you're a team out there, you could have had Lamar Jackson for a couple first-rounders.
The Atlanta Falcons could have had Lamar Jackson.
Arthur Smith might still have a job. Wouldn't be yelling at Dennis Allen in a blowout.
Arthur Smith doesn't need the job, though.
No, he doesn't.
His
dad owns FedEx.
That's the thing. Arthur Smith's dad is Fred Smith of FedEx fame. He's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Yes. He's got head coach money, and he's got FedEx money. It's like Chris Rock used to say, "There's rich and there's wealthy."
Yes, Shaq is rich. The guy who owns the Magic, he's wealthy.
Yes, Arthur Smith, wealthy.
He's wealthy. That's right. Small Baller brings up something interesting about this conversation. Elway wouldn't move on from mistakes, hence low dead cap. There's something to that. He did keep guys around a little longer than maybe he should have, which I think has been a Achilles for this entire team. You should have moved on from Paxton. How many times have I said it? We knew pretty early on, it's not going to work out with this kid. So get rid of him, draft Josh Allen.
You look at the 2017 and 2018 drafts, and especially 2018 because he did work with Josh Allen. He had the opportunity there. But hey, in 2017, in theory, what was stopping you from trading up to pick Patrick Mahomes, right? But it was, we got to see where Paxton Lynch goes. Another example, okay, if we fast forward to 2020, Drew Locke had shown some promise late in 2019, yes, but the Broncos thought very highly of Justin Herbert. Now, it would have taken a trade up to get Herbert, but that notion went by the wayside because it's let's see what we got with Drew Locke. Almost we owe him. We owe him an opportunity. That's not how you do it in the NFL. That's got some, there's noble thoughts behind that, but you can't operate that way. Until you've got the guy at quarterback, you always keep swinging, right? Even if that means, you had Drew Locke and he played 5 games. But if you like Justin Herbert better as a prospect, go get Justin Herbert.
Yes.
Right? If, you had Paxton Lynch in 2018, don't pass on Josh Allen in retrospect just because, we want to see we got a little more at Paxton Lynch. And we have Case Keenum, we're fine. No. Okay.
Well, and what's
You
fascinating
were
about
fine
that?
with Case Keenum as a bridge,
Yes.
not as the guy.
Not as the guy. And you know what's fascinating about that? And you know I love John Elway. I think he's the best quarterback of all time, although Tom Brady broke me with all those damn Super Bowls. But you know what's fascinating, Mace?
What?
He was worried about what people said. He was worried about what the public perception was. You took a first rounder in 2016. How can you take one in 2018? You took a second rounder in 2019. How you can take a first rounder in 2020? Like, forget what people say. Go win. And Elway, the ultimate competitor, should have known that, yet he got into this mode of like timidity. Is that even a word? Did I use that right?
No, timidity.
He had a timid nature about him, which is crazy because he's John Elway, the most confident man of all time.
Yeah. The man known for his boldness got timid in 2018.
Crazy.
But that happens. You touch the piece of cheese that's got the electric shock to it. You know, it's the whole, it's Pavlovian, right? Like,
right.
And then, I don't want to touch it again. So I'm going to go back to what I know, which is drafting an edge rusher, with a top 5 pick, which worked with Von Miller in 2011. So you take Bradley Chubb in 2018. Oh, I mean, Bradley Chubb has proven to be a fine player. The other thing that I look back on in that draft process, I remember when they drafted Bradley Chubb, the comment was, "Oh, we did our mock drafts and Bradley Chubb never fell to 5." And I'm like, what mock drafts were you doing?
Should have done more mock drafts.
I think I literally wrote a mock draft where Bradley Chubb fell to 5. Okay. There was a very realistic scenario in the top 5 of that year where it went Baker Mayfield at the top, Saquon Barkley of the Giants at 2, because Dave Gettleman, the GM, was determined to get his running back.
Of course.
The Jets moved up. They were moved up for a quarterback, and it was going to be Sam Darnold. And the Browns, very much, I thought all along they were taking Denzel Ward at 4, and they did. Not Bradley Chubb. So I don't know what was going on in those mock drafts. Maybe it was a little bit of groupthink.
Yes. Yeah.
That, okay, we all love Bradley Chubb, so how could Bradley Chubb fall to 5? The Browns have to take him, right? Well, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Always something going on.
It's good to have an outside perspective from time to time.
It's good to have an outside perspective and just kind of break out of that CYA and the scouting community that we get. I mean, I've known scouts that have, quoted stuff that I've written, and I'm like, why are you listening to me? I'm a slappy on the radio, or YouTube, I guess now I should say. So since I said YouTube, that means I must command to say like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. But Mace, always
we're not at the end of the show yet, or are we?
No. That's a pattern interrupt right there.
Oh, okay.
So, there you go. Yeah, I love fancy terms. We are going to talk about Hard Knocks. Are you ready for this? Are you ready to be on HBO? Now, the unfortunate thing is,
we'll be on HBO in the background, I guess, if the Broncos are on Hard Knocks.
Yeah. So we should do Mace Fit Friday.
It also means that when the team's on Hard Knocks, some of us slappies they're asking questions. Get on Hard Knocks, right?
Right. Get our voices heard.
Oh boy.
We're heard on Hard Knocks.
If I ask a dumb question and it's going out on national television. Oh boy.
Yeah. Sean Payton he'll get after you. Payton actually.
Maybe I'll get it. Maybe I'll get that's a good question.
That's kind of he does that as a stopgap for his answers. You notice that? That's a good question.
Because he's thinking, he has to think
about how to respond.
Exactly. It's like he wasn't quite expecting that.
Right.
Yes.
So
there's great question. There's good question. Then there's fair question. And the fair question is like, okay, this is hitting me at an ouchie, but I knew I was going to get it. And I have to respond to it.
You forgot the best one though. Next question.
Oh yeah. Got that.
Poor Chris.
Got that.
Our buddy Chris.
Got
Next
that
question.
A lot.
Yeah, you got that a lot. So when was this? When he talked, was this the finale press conference?
No.
When this was a few weeks left in the season.
This was December 29th before the Charger game.
Oh, okay.
And he was asked about criticism because in the wake of benching Russell Wilson, there was a lot of critiques of him, and he was asked by Troy Rank about, okay, how do you not take it personally? And in his response, he talked about Hard Knocks. So let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
I think it's part of the deal, and I understand it. And look, yeah, I mean, I get it. But it's the only thing that makes me once in a while want to do Hard Knocks, because there's a perception, and then, that's that would be the only reason to get an insight as to, this whole old school approach. Shoot, you don't do this long if you're not adjusting, funny, creative, all of those things. And I think I am all of those things.
He is all those things and a bag of chips. He's everything. He is Sean Payton, and Sean Payton on Hard Knocks. Yes, please. I think we need to see a little of that.
Yeah. See some of his speeches as well, right?
See his teaching. He's a teacher of football. We're out at practice all the time. I've seen more teaching since the Mike Shanahan days. That's the last time I saw this much teaching.
But here's the thing on Hard Knocks is that teams have the ability to control what's on there. So you might get a sanitized version. But I would like to see, for example, when he stops practice to go over some situation. Like one of my favorite moments in the offseason last year was when he stopped practice to go over the fair catch free kick, which comes up, I don't know, every few years.
Once every 5 years.
And he's there explaining, he's saying, guys, it might be a windy night in Buffalo on Monday Night Football, and the wind might be kicking up, and you call for the fair catch free kick, and the winds are our back, and we can kick a field goal here, right? It was the attention to detail is really phenomenal, and came up in a discussion earlier this week on social media. I'm like, there was like a scenario from a few years ago. Oh, it was the Minneapolis Miracle.
Oh, yes.
And I'm like, I find it hard to believe that was an error of preparation. That was an error of execution that allowed that touchdown to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way in terms of the play call and in terms of that moment that the Saints had not drilled that type of scenario at some point, because they go over everything.
Yes.
Right.
And I believe it was rookie safety that missed that tackle.
Yeah.
Joey would know. He's the big Vikings fan.
Well,
yeah.
Instead of being in position to wrap up and tackle, you're going for the hit, which, that's how the thing is. A lot of the great plays in sports history, a lot of the great moments involve somebody screwing up. I mean, there's greatness, but okay, I'll give a baseball example, local baseball example. Rocktober, the greatest moment in Rockies history, that run to steal a wild card spot in 07 and then go on to the World Series. It doesn't happen if the Mets don't have a freaking collapse at the end of the year, right? So it's not just you doing something great. It often involves somebody else screwing up. That's the reality. That's reality, folks.
Well,
in the zero-sum world of sports ball.
Man, I get when people are like, the team can control Last Dance, right? I love Michael Jordan. I love The Last Dance. It was PR for him. And he still didn't look that great.
Well,
so it's like,
he produced it, right?
Yes.
His name was on the
teams are
going
to control the narrative.
Yes.
Welcome to the NFL. That's what they do. That's why they don't like sometimes when the narrative is different from what the public perception is wanted to be.
And it was interesting though, Sean Payton, he very carefully, he didn't say he would love to do Hard Knocks.
He just thought
he
about
said,
it.
It's the only thing that makes me once in a while want to do Hard Knocks. But that being said, if you're HBO, or it's Max now, I can't get
whatever.
I can't get used to that. Come on,
it's still Twitter.
HBO
it's still
was
HBO.
A brand name that.
And Max reminds me of Showmax Showtime, Cinemax.
No,
that's
Cinemax. Well, that's the whole thing. And Cinemax has its own.
Yeah, we better move on from Cinemax talk.
Anyhow, so he said it's the one thing that makes me once in a while want to do Hard Knocks. So, but if you're HBO and you're the NFL, there are 3 teams that cannot say no to Hard Knocks: the Broncos, the Chicago Bears, the New Orleans Saints. The Bears might have Caleb Williams, number 1 overall pick, coming in at quarterback. Who do you think the networks in the league are going to want? Are they going to want Sean Payton, or are they going to want their new prize superstar?
Well, you mentioned Caleb Williams, Mace. I'm going to say something because it's still within the realm of possibilities. What if the Broncos had Caleb Williams?
Okay, if they trade up to the number 1 overall pick,
they get Hard Knocks.
Then you can just
knocks.
put that in Sharpie if that happens.
Yeah,
that they're on Hard Knocks if they trade up for the number 1 overall pick.
Yes.
Yeah, that's done.
No doubt.
Fait accompli.
No doubt.
Yeah.
It's Orange and Blue today. Help us grow our YouTube channel. By the way, we have a second edition coming out today.
OBT2?
OBT After Dark.
OBT.
Wait, okay, we got to decide because you
I
like
know.
After Dark.
I like After
too.
Dark.
So I think
OBTAD.
Obitad. Obitad. Okay. Watch some Obitad coming up later. Orange and Blue today After Dark. That's why you subscribe to YouTube, because it will be up on YouTube roughly about 8 p.m. Mountain Time.
After Dark.
After Dark. So we've got this show for you, and we're some chatty blankety blankers. I almost said the word. So we've got more coming for you on more quarterback discussion.
Yes.
And an interesting comparison that Joel Klatt had for JJ McCarthy. I can't wait for fans to see that.
It's interesting because he says something that could be a trigger for Broncos country.
Trigger warning.
Yes.
That's
when
right.
We're talking about JJ McCarthy coming out of Michigan.
Okay. Well,
so, tune in. Join us.
Tune in. Join us and help us grow the YouTube channel. We really appreciate your help. So that means like comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid.
We had the finger wagging was in the opposite direction there. Oops, we got to work on that one.
Yeah, it's like you have to be like windshield wipers, right? Windshield wipers.
Although when they don't work, like,
tempo.
You've seen some wipers go like this, right? I mean, it's kind of
sometimes it's off.
Yeah.
Like this. Okay.
Anyway,
either way, we're finger wagging. You're clicking like. We appreciate you all. He's Mace. I'm Cease. OBT is a BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and always stay frosty.